Okay, so we are in Judges, chapter 1, verse 16. Okay. The descendants of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up from the city of palms with the sons of Judah to the wilderness of Judah, which is in the south of Arad, and they went and lived with the people. Then Judah went with Simeon, his brother, and they struck the Canaanites living in Japheth and utterly destroyed it. So the name of the city was called Hormah. And Judah took Gaza with its territory, and Ashkelon with its territory, and Ekron with its territory. Now the Lord was with Judah, and they took possession of the hill country, but they could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley because they had iron chariots. So my first question to you today is, so what if they had iron chariots? You think God can't take care of iron chariots? Yeah, I'm recording. So what was the big deal? And keep in mind, this is the second or third time we've heard one group of Israelites specifically mention, but they have iron chariots. We don't go up there. And does this mean or imply that the Israelites were incapable of using iron, smelting the iron ore to build this stuff themselves? I don't know. I just think it's interesting thing to think about, because this seems to keep freaking them out. And instead of doing something about it and using the God-given intelligence that they had, they just keep waiting on God to fight all their battles for them. And here, I think, again, I say I think because I'm clarifying, it's not, written here directly, but they keep freaking out about these people that have iron chariots, and that just scares them, and they're saying, I can't win against them. With God and everything they've seen Yahweh do for them, you think God can't handle it? Have you prayed about it? Have you tried? I don't know. It just kind of frustrates me with them when I read this, because it's something that they've continually done. I can't. It's something it's above me. I can't handle that. Versus finding a way to do it or praying to God more about it. Okay. Then they gave. Yeah.
And they mentioned in verse 18, Gaza.
Yes.
We're still fighting about Gaza.
Mm-hmm. Well, Israel's still fighting about Gaza. I don't see where there's ever going to be peace. I mean, you can broker all the peace deals you want, and it may last for a few years, but it's not going to stay that way. We all know that. Not until Christ comes back. Then they gave Hebron to Caleb, as Moses had promised, and he drove out from there the 3 sons of Anak. But the sons of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites who lived in Jerusalem. So the Jebusites have lived with the sons of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. Likewise, the house of Joseph went up against Bethel, and the Lord was with them. The house of Joseph spied out Bethel. Now the name of the city was formerly Luz. The spies saw a man coming out of the city, and they said to him, "Please show us the entrance to the city, and we will treat you kindly." So he showed them the entrance to the city, and they struck the city with the edge of the sword, but they let the man and all his family go free. The man went into the city of the Hittites and built into the land of the Hittites and built a city and named it Luz, which is its name to this day. Well, what is all this, the majority of this telling us? The Israelites are not accomplishing what God's told them to do. He said, hey, go kick all the people out of the promised land. There are a couple of these they did, but the rest of them, they let these other races live within them, which is specifically what he said, don't do that. Now, the obvious question is going to be, why could they not drive them out?
They didn't have the faith that they should have.
And that's part of what we'll get into, hopefully by the end of today's lesson, if we get far enough here. But I just want to make the point that they're already faltering shortly after their loss of Joshua. And we still recount some things today, so that kind of gets weird because we all of a sudden start talking about Joshua again and Vince and his timeline. But again, they like to recap, as we all know in the Old Testament. A lot of things repeat, just so you'll remember it. But let's continue on. But Manasseh did not take possession of Beth Shean and its villages, or Tanach and its villages, or the inhabitants of Dor and its villages, or the inhabitants of Iblim and its villages, and the inhabitants of Megiddo and its villages. So the Canaanites persisted in living in that land. So here, more of the same, right? It came about when Israel became strong that they put the Canaanites to forced labor, but they did not drive them out completely. Now, this is the first time that I see a direct time of going against Yahweh. They're supposed to drive them all out. They're supposed to get rid of them all. Kill them, drive them out, whatever, but get everybody out of the promised land that's not Israelite. So they became strong, but what did they do? Did they drive them out? No. They put the Canaanites to forced labor. So they just made them their slaves. Which always really annoys me when I see Israel making somebody a slave. I get the point. They're against God, so they make them a slave. But how long was Israel enslaved? And now they're just turning around and doing it to somebody else. But nonetheless, some of those times God told them, hey, that's an option. If you want to keep them as slaves, you can. In this case, that didn't happen. Here, they just decided to keep them. Well, why did Yahweh want them to get rid of them and get them all out of the land? They wanted them out of the land so they didn't teach them their ways of worshiping false gods. They wanted to get them out of the way so they didn't plant seeds of doubt in their minds against Yahweh. They wanted to get them out because the classic monkey see, monkey do. You see these people worshiping somebody else. Well, that looks like a good idea. That seems to be working out for them. I'm going to try that. Or they look at, they don't have these rules to follow. If I follow that God, that looks like that might be a better way to go about living. No, God was trying to tell them, get all those people away from you so you don't see that, so you don't fall into temptation. But here, they're obviously not going to do that. Ephraim did not drive out the Canaanites who were living in Gezer, so the Canaanites lived in Gezer among them. Remember, they're not supposed to live with them. Zebulun did not drive out the inhabitants of Kitron and the inhabitants of Nahalah, so the Canaanites lived among them and became subject to forced labor. Same question as before. Why not remove them? Why not follow what God told them to do? Get them out. Run them out. Or kill them all. That was obviously another option. If you're afraid they're going to come back when they get stronger, fine, kill them all. That's kind of the way the Old Testament works, right? I mean, it is what it is. Asher did not drive out the inhabitants of Acco, or the inhabitants of Sidon, or of Alab, or of Achzib, or of Helba, or of Ethnic, or of Rehob. So the Asherites lived among the Canaanites and the inhabitants of the land, for they did not drive them out. Naphtali did not drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh, or the inhabitants of Beth Anath, but lived among the Canaanites and inhabitants of the land. And the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh and of Beth Anath became forced labor for them. So see, again, they've got the ability, God's given them the ability to conquer them, but then they decided, hey, let's keep them around. Let's just use them as forced labor. Bad idea. It's going against what God's told you to do. Then the Amorites forced the sons of Dan into the hill country, for they did not allow them to come down to the valley. Yet the Amorites persisted in living in Mount Heres, in Ajalon, and in Shalbim. But when the power of the house of Joseph grew too strong, they became forced labor. The border of the Amorites ran from the ascent of Akrabim, from Selah and upwards. So, in other words, all throughout their land, they've got other people in there. They're not really worried about getting them out. Are they going and asking the other tribes, hey, can you help me out so we can drive out these people or go kill them all like Yahweh told us to? No. They're just, you know what? I got a lot of land. I'm good here. I'll get to it one of these days. That's not what Yahweh told them to do. And how long did Yahweh tell them they could keep the promised land?
Forever.
As long as they kept their covenant. Well, did they just break their covenant 3 times here in this last chapter? I mean, that's the way I'm reading it. We're going to keep, we beat them, but we're going to keep them as slaves, as forced laborers. You just broke your covenant. You agreed to do all that Yahweh told you to do. He told you to get all these people out of the promised land. Now, the angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochim, and he said, I brought you out of Egypt and led you into the land which I have sworn to your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you. As for you, you shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. Sound like they've done that already. You shall tear down their altars, but you have not obeyed me. What is this you have done? I mean, what did they do? They made a peace treaty with people that lived in their land. So they already broke their agreement with Yahweh, and now they're being called to order for it. And it's not just that, because obviously since he makes a point of saying, you shall tear down their altars, sounds like they didn't do that either. Which of course they didn't. Why? Because they haven't driven everybody out. So how are you going to tear down the altars if they're still in your land? Therefore, I also said, I will not drive them out before you, but they will become as thorns in your side, and their gods will be a snare to you. When the angel of the Lord spoke these words to all the sons of Israel, the people lifted up their voices and wept. So they named the place Bochim, and they sacrificed to the Lord. Well, they already said it was named that, so I'm not sure that was just an afterthought, because first thing he said was that was the name of where they were. But either way, when the Lord sends an angel to you, you better be upset and weeping and sorry and repentant. But they keep doing the same thing. They're being warned. Now, mind you, it's probably been several hundred years. I mean, that's the general idea. But still, that's another thing in this. Why are they repeating this? Not following. Well, because in theory, we're guessing at the time frame here, but this is what commentaries and all this will tell you, is that this has probably been 200 or 300 to 400 years, somewhere in that ballpark. They don't know exactly, but close. Well, if you don't teach your children about Yahweh, if you don't raise them up in church, why would you expect them to be following Yahweh? Look at where we are today. Growing up, it seemed like everybody I knew went to church. Whether they were active or not was a separate issue, but everybody seemed to go to church somewhere. Now today, you look around, churches are pretty empty. Whose fault is that? Well, I'll say our current living generations. It's happened in one person's lifetime, all this has changed. So I think we have to take responsibility for that, and we got to find a way to change it.
It said to bring a child up in the way he should go, he will not depart from it.
That's correct.
A lot of times we never brought them up.
Mm-hmm.
They never turned to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody has freedom of choice. So I understand that you're going to bring up some children and they're going to choose to go a different path. Fine, you don't control that, but you can educate them in the right path. If they choose to stray from it, there's only so much you can do. But I look around today and people don't seem to take care of their kids or teach their children in the first place. So it's not about them straying when they're out of the house. It's about not being brought up right in the first place. And that's society's fault.
It might have been years ago, but it's not now.
Well, I mean, we We've made sure the Ten Commandments are out in school. We made sure a moment of prayer every day is out. We even made sure we get rid of the moment of silence. We can't have that either. We got to get rid of that. We made sure before a football game or a sporting event, there will not be a prayer. We made sure of that. We did. Why? Because we're all the ones who were voting when those things happened, except for him.
A lot of the ball tournaments, they start with prayer now again.
Some do. Some are getting sued for it still. Yeah. But
So that's encouraging.
yeah, it is encouraged. Well, I mean, some places, Texas is now putting the Ten Commandments back in schools. In fact, it's mandatory, I believe. So, yes, there are some positive things that we're trying to revert to, but now we've made it an uphill battle because we let it change. And I'm truly hopeful that we can get things back to a more godly place and a more godly country. But
You know, a lot of it falls on us. We didn't stand up for what we thought was right. We let one woman, Madeline O'Hara, take prayer out of school.
yes,
One woman against all other Christians, and she was able to take it out of schools.
yeah,
So that's our problem. We're standing back and letting her do it.
I agree. And that's one of the things that, some people don't like, but you have to look at the fact that politics has an effect on religion, and religion should have an effect on politics. And it doesn't matter if you like it or not, it's the truth. Why? Because we read through all kinds of things. If you say you can't deal with politics and religion, then tell me this. How can we preach half of what's in here? Why? Because it goes against the politics of the day. You want to go talk about, women dressing as men, men dressing as women. Oh, it's in here. It says don't do it. But I don't hear people preaching about it. I don't hear people preaching about homosexuality being wrong either. It's not politically correct. I don't care.
They're accepting them in churches.
I agree. That's,
Men, women.
yes, because they want the tithe. They want the money coming in the door. They want the bodies and pews and worry about the rest later. Problem is, that's what's messing up the churches. And I'm not trying, this is not political. This is biblical, but biblical ties into it. And we've got to, I think, read what's here and live our lives according to the Bible. And that does mean dipping into things that people don't want to hear in this world.
I think it's interesting that Madeline Murray O'Hare's son became a Christian and went out around, not so much preaching, but teaching about Christ.
Well, you can.
Saying how wrong his mother was.
Well, you can do better than that and look at abortion and look at that landmark case. Who fought against it afterwards? The Jane Doe, Roe versus Wade. So Roe, she came back and regretted it severely and fought against it and helped get it turned around the other way because she thought it was a terrible thing. So people can change, but boy, I hope we can change our country for that. And it's just the point of, yes, people can change and see what's right and wrong after they've made a mistake. But I think that it's relevant because here we're seeing where not following God does to the Israelites and how they get in trouble. So let's continue on here in 6. I think that's 6. Sorry, I didn't put my glasses on. When Joshua had dismissed, I know we're jumping back to Joshua, but it does jump around a little here in the introduction area. When Joshua had dismissed the people, the sons of Israel went each to his inheritance to possess the land. The people served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who survived Joshua, who had seen all the great works of the Lord which he had done for Israel. Then Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him in his territory of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gosh. All these generations also were gathered to their fathers, and there arose another generation who did not know the Lord, nor yet the work which he had done for Israel. See, that's the problem. The next generation raised up and they're like, hey, we've already got all this land. Everything's good from our standpoint. We don't need to have to worry about Yahweh. No, I'm not worried about learning about him. Why do I need it? I've already got everything. Because that's how you got it in the first place. And that's what I was going for here a minute ago is you have to raise up your children, your offspring, in a way that is godly, or else you will lose everything. We will lose everything. I mean, we'll lose our country. We'll lose our right to openly pray, our right to freedom of religion, all these things. Everybody thinks this is ingrained, it's just going to be there. But it isn't.
You know, by taking prayer out of the schools, that may have been the only way that some children would ever heard about Jesus and God, was in prayer and stuff.
I agree. I mean, even in my generation, late 80s, we tried to have Bible study classes in some of the teachers' classrooms before school. And teachers were like, yeah, okay, yeah, well, you can use my classroom for, well, you got 10 of you in there or something. Yeah, okay, fine. And the principal gets wind of it. That got shut down. No, we're not having that. That's a religious group in there. We can't have that. Why not? You got Fellowship of Christian Athletes. You let them do it because, well, they're approved. No, you're letting them do it because they're athletes. And that drives people to like the school. It had nothing to do with religion. So things have changed, usually for the worse. We've got to find a way to get it back and follow God. That's all I'm trying to say.
A friend of mine was driving a bus for the senior citizens, and he was talking to people about Jesus and stuff. And so they called him in the office and told him that he couldn't talk to people about Jesus on God. He said, well, if I can't do that, I don't need it. So he walked out the door, and I don't blame him.
No, I don't blame him. In fact, I think it's a good thing to a degree.
I was listening to like a town meeting or something on the web or something for Lewisburg. But right in the beginning, if people come up to speak, you know, you have to sign in, and they said, and don't bring up anything religious or
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
They don't even want to say nothing about it.
Yeah, well, a lot of times they don't.
That's the only thing that's going to ever matter.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
A few people got it in there though.
Yeah, well,
Good for them.
it's one of those, just make sure it's at the end of your little speech. And then, yeah, it's like, what are they going to do at that point? You know, thankfully in Giles County we don't have any of that, any rules against that, but at least not yet. But I wouldn't put it past some people to do that. Okay. Then the sons of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served Baals. Okay. Just for clarification, it's Baal or Baal, however you want to pronounce it. But the reason there's an S is actually Baal is not one false god. Baal is about 10 false gods at least, all with different varying backstories, all in the same general region of the Promised Land. So when they say this, keep in mind that it's plural. It's not, Baals is not one name of a god. It's Baal is multiple false gods. So that's what they're saying they turn to. And we all know, what's the one thing that seems to tick God off more than anything else? Thou shalt have no false gods before me. So I'm first. And they're worshiping other gods. And they forsook the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods from among the gods of the people who were around them, and bowed themselves down to them. Thus they provoked the Lord to anger. What? They didn't get out the Canaanites. They didn't get out the Hittites. They didn't get out the Jebusites. They didn't get out all of these foreign nations in the Promised Land that they were told to get out. And even if they hadn't been able to beat them, they still could have followed Yahweh and not gone to false gods. But the elders didn't teach the younger generation. And this is what happened to them. So they forsook the Lord and served Baal and the Asheroth. The anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he gave them into the hands of plunderers who plundered them. And he sold them into the hands of their enemies around them, so that they could no longer stand before their enemies. Keep in mind, Israel wasn't a warrior nation. The reason they won battles was because God went before them. Without God, what do they have? And here they've rejected Yahweh. So now they've got false gods. Wherever they went, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil, as the Lord had spoken, and as the Lord had sworn to them, so that they were severely distressed. Then the Lord raised up judges who delivered them from the hands of those who plundered them. Yet they did not listen to their judges, for they played the harlot among other gods and bowed themselves down to them. They turned aside quickly from the way in which their fathers had walked in obeying the commandments of the Lord. They did not do as their fathers. When the Lord raised up judges for them, the Lord was with the judge and delivered them from the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For the Lord was moved to pity by their groaning because of those who oppressed and afflicted them. So notice it's for the days of the judge, meaning really the Lord was with the judge. And the people would decide, okay, if I listen to the judge, let's see what happens. But they would forget that the judge is reporting to Yahweh. Yahweh's the one making the rules. So keep following Yahweh. No, they just follow the judge until the judge dies. And no, I'll go back to doing what I want to do again. But it came about when the judge died that they would turn back and act more corruptly than their fathers in following other gods to serve them and bow down to them. They did not abandon their practices or their stubborn ways. Excuse me. So the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he said, because this nation has transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and has not listened to my voice, I also will no longer drive out before them any of the nations which Joshua left when he died, in order to test Israel by them, whether they keep the way of the Lord to walk in as their fathers did or not. So the Lord allowed those nations to remain, not driving them out quickly, and he did not give them into the hands of Joshua. So notice, he knew Joshua was following him, but he limited Joshua's time. And remember, the days of man are 120 years, right? So most you're going to make it's 120. What did Moses get? 120. And that was it. Joshua got a little bit less at 110. Still a really long life. But the thing here is that Joshua didn't have time in all of his days to drive everybody out. And I think what it's telling us here is this was intentional. And Yahweh was like, okay, this is enough. Let's see if they'll do what they'll do now. But here's the test to Israel. I've set them up. I've shown them how it's done. Let's see what they're going to do. Let's see if they're going to follow me, if the chief priest is going to lead them in the right direction or what. Because keep in mind, they didn't have another leader like Moses and Joshua following in. All they had now was the chief priest. And
Okay, we have pastors now,
yep,
and of course the Bible is telling us how we should be. Who was responsible for telling the children and telling the families, reminding them what the covenant said and what it was? And if it were the priests, did they have sermons?
well, it was the priests, and you would hear sermons because if you recall, there were several days through the year, according to their own rules, God had given them through Moses, that they were supposed to go to the tabernacle. And they were supposed to recite the laws, or listen to the laws being recited. And they didn't do that. They quit following those rules because, hey, everything was good. There was peace. We had land. They had food. Had their cities already built. So, yeah, it was. But it was... It's like it is today. It's the pastor's responsibility as a chief priest, essentially, to provide the message and to provide direction. But it's the parents in the home that are responsible for raising the kids every other day of the week.
And God specifically says it's the fathers. I mean, mothers
Yes.
do too, but
Yeah.
you are the one at the
Yep.
golden gate that's going to be
Yeah, I'm the one that's responsible.
for this guy.
Yeah, I'm responsible for better or for worse. And standing up here makes it even worse for me because I'm trying to teach you all stuff, and I'll get in more trouble if I don't teach you the right thing. So it's kind of intimidating being a teacher, because you know you're going to be judged more harshly for what you say. And that's why when I don't understand something I'm reading to you, I typically tell you, I do not understand, because I'm not going to say the wrong thing. Or I'll tell you, as I did earlier today, this is the way I see this happening. This is what I think happened from what I'm reading. Why? Because I don't want you to have any, inference that, oh, this is coming from God. If I believe this is what happened and I understand it, I'm going to tell you that. If I don't, I'll tell you that too. Because sometimes I don't know. Other times I do. It varies. But I think that, I just think it's very important, and you're right, it does come down to the parents and the father in particular. We're ultimately responsible. Why? Why do you have a thing called a head of household? Why? Because that's the male that's in charge. In my house, that's me. So, I am responsible for that. I'm responsible for what I let my kids do and what I don't let them do, for that matter. And that's true of all of us. And again, as long as they're in my household, I have that responsibility until they're 18. Which someone will be fairly soon. He'll be 18 this month, yeah.
Oh, he does it this month.
Yeah.
He just got 4 days.
Yeah. He's almost there. He's almost there. Yeah, that's a scary thought. Scary thought. He's probably going to try to vote me out of office. I can't tell you. I know how it is. Okay. Now, these are the nations which the Lord left to test Israel by them. That is, all who had not experienced any of the wars of Canaan, only in order that the generations of the sons of Israel might be taught war, those who had not experienced it formerly. Now, let's stop for a second to clarify this. So, we just said that at the end of chapter 2, that Joshua basically didn't drive out everybody. God took him before he could do that. And it was intentional, because Yahweh wanted to leave some people and go, okay, I'm going to see how you handle this. And also, I want you to know you have to fight in this life. You have to fight. It's not, we talk about, right to liberty and freedom and all this. Freedom isn't free. It's classic line, right? Why? Because it isn't. Well, people had to go fight for it. People had to go to war. I haven't gone to war. I've never been in the military, never wanted to be. They'd have had me in jail in no time. But that's my personality. But the point of it is that, I don't know that, but that doesn't mean I haven't seen it, and I haven't seen people around me go through it. But and I've known some people that have, been in wars, and I've had conversations with them, and I get it. To as much as I can without having been there. But Yahweh wanted them to, to understand that and to know that freedom isn't free. And you're going to have to fight to keep what I've given you. Okay. These nations are the 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites who lived in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon as far as Lebo Hamath. They were for testing Israel, to find out if they would obey the commandments of the Lord, which he had commanded their fathers through Moses. The sons of Israel lived among the Canaanites, the Hivites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hittites, I swapped those two, and the Jebusites. And they took their daughters for themselves as wives, and they gave their own daughters to their sons, and served their gods. The sons of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and forgot the Lord their God, and served the Baals and the Asheroth. Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, so they sold them into the hands of Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, and the sons of Israel served Cushan-Rishathaim 8 years. So, again, when did all this happen? As soon as they turned from Yahweh, as soon as they quit following him. They didn't not just failing. I mean, some of them tried to get rid of the those in their land. But how hard did they try? And I say that because previously, correct me if I'm wrong, but they went and got other tribes to come help them. Remember, all 12 tribes started this. And you know this had to be God's plan to leave them there too, because what happened? They were all supposed to go over 1,000 from every tribe, right? And they were supposed to help fight and get everybody out of the promised land. But who sent them home before the job was done? Joshua did. And I'm pretty sure Joshua did it because God told him to do it. So he sent them home to their inheritance to rest. Well, that left these people here, but that's why they had to deal with them still. And they didn't go ask for help from the other tribes to drive them out. The only one that did is Judah, and that's one we started with last week versus this week. Judah did go get help from another tribe, and guess what? They were successful. But Judah was a little bit more of a follow Yahweh tribe, if you will, because if you think about it, which tribe got their land, their inheritance first? Judah. I think they got it first because that was God's plan. They were the more godly tribe. Now you'd think it'd go to the Levites, but the Levites, keep in mind, didn't have any land. So it's perspective there. But I'm just trying to set out the deal, what they're doing here that got them in so much trouble. They were specifically told, don't intermarry. Don't worship their gods. If you intermarry with them, what do you think is going to happen? The wives are probably, the daughters are probably going to get you to follow their gods. Look what happened later on with Solomon. Solomon had every false god in his nation. Why? Because he didn't listen. And he was still highly favored by Yahweh. So it doesn't make a lot of sense as far as why he would let those people in. But it's the same here. They're going in and they're intermarrying with these people. Well, they're probably trying to do the same thing Solomon did. Keep the peace. But they have an order here. Get them out. They're not doing it. So if you're looking at why Yahweh would possibly be upset with them, this is why. When the sons of Israel cried to the Lord raised up a deliverer for the sons of Israel to deliver them. Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel. When he went out to war, the Lord gave Cushman-Rishman, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand, so that he prevailed over Cushan. Whatever. Then the land had rest for 40 years, and Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. Now the sons of Israel, again, did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. And he gathered to himself the sons of Ammon and Amalek, and he went and defeated Israel, and they possessed the city of the palms. The sons of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. Again, all because they wouldn't listen. Of course, the other thing that interests me here is the city of palms. Well, you don't think of palm trees being anywhere around there, do you? But apparently there's a city of palm trees.
They were supposed to have those big cedars of Lebanon.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes they refer to, just go to the oak. And it's the oak in this area. And it's like, yeah, there are lots of oaks. I can walk around even Jonathan's property. We can find all kinds of oak trees, right?
Yeah.
But the caveat there is this had to be so big that you couldn't miss it. All right? How big did these oak trees get as an example with this? There have been fires in some of the cathedrals in England, and they've had to go in and they've had to use oak from 4 to 5 trees to patch the one that was burnt, because the one that was holding up the entire cathedral was from one tree. One tree was holding up all the buttresses, the buttresses are holding the sides in, but holding up the entire roof of the cathedral was one oak tree. How they cut it and moved it is impressive to me, let alone to get it in there, because if you lift up a stack of oak, oak boards, I'm here to tell you as a woodworker, that's heavy. And these people carried one that could support the entire stone ceiling of a cathedral. One, branch out enough to support the whole thing. So yes, we had huge trees at one point in time. Not so much now. We've used them all, at least over there. Excuse me, guys. I'm having a time today. Okay. So again, they're getting penalized fairly severely here. 18 years of someone else reigning over them. But do you see the cycle already, just so far in Judges?
The phrase that keeps coming through all of this, and the Israelites did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Israelites did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Israelites.
You're skipping the every other one now. You've got that, and then you've got, and they complained to the Lord, and the Lord had mercy. And then that repeats, because it's the same thing. Because yes, the Lord will relent because they're praying to him. Some of them are. Not all of them, obviously. That's kind of the whole point. But there's some that remember the old ways and start praying to Yahweh. And great, he listens. He relents. Says, okay, I'll send you somebody. I'll send you a judge to tell you what you're doing wrong and tell you what you need to be doing. And that works until the judge dies. And then everybody goes, okay, we're all on our own again. What, you think God turned your back on you? No, the guy died, the person got old, or the woman died. Because there are some female judges. We'll be getting into that, actually, next week. So we're going to stop here for the day. So we will pick up at 3:15 next week. Let me stop the recording here.